kind of like, I've already done
the worst
that it could happen. In my mind was the worst thing that could happen. So it was like, it's going to be all right. It's not about one event, like as long as there's damage control, like there's certain events you're not going to do great at. If you can damage control in those events.
Welcome back, everyone, to the School of Greatness podcast. We've got the iconic and legendary Rich Froning in the house.
That's
man.
right.
Good to see you, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
The greatest of all time in the CrossFit world, unless the new guy.
Yeah, unless Frazier's got a couple more to get there. So
he might be able to get there in the next few years.
Yeah,
but
probably.
I wonder what it would have been like if he was the same age as you, and he would have started in 2008, 9, 10.
Yeah, it's just different. It's different eras. It's like comparing Jordan and LeBron, that type of thing, where it's like, when we started, it was like we were trying to figure stuff out and nobody really knew what we were doing, and we were just kind of crushing ourselves all the time. Yeah. And so it's just different.
Now there's a model and there's systems and science
and
to
he's
it.
an incredible athlete, but it's just it's different.
Yeah,
it's just comparing different eras is hard.
Sure.
But yeah, he's super fit, man. He's a good athlete, good dude.
He's a machine.
So
now I met you, I think in 2011 or 12. Briefly at the games, with Graham. It was like in the athletes. I got like a coach's pass, so I came back there and
with
hung
the
out.
enemy.
The enemy. And
Graham's good dude.
I think you'd won twice at that point, so it didn't matter. And I remember you just having this reputation. And I'm also friends with Webb. I think Webb was working with you for a while.
Webb Smith, yep.
And I remember you just always had this great reputation of being like the nicest guy, solid guy, Christian guy, just like cared about family and the hardest worker in the room.
Well, my parents, that's all from them, really. That's anytime anybody asked me about my parents and how I was raised, it was like, my parents were the hardest two working people in the room wherever we went.
Really?
And so, that was just it was understood when I was a kid. That's what you're going to do. And if you weren't going to find yourself something to do, they were going to find you something to do.
Really?
So,
They were going to put you in something, they were going to make you.
Yeah, if we weren't outside, you were gonna, and weather permitting, but if we weren't outside doing something, they were gonna find us something to do. So we were always, trying to play a game or do whatever. But even on the days we found stuff to do, they were still finding us something to do.
Who did you have a deeper relationship with, mom or dad?
Both, really. I was a mama's boy when I was real little, and really close with my mom's still, but yeah, they were both have equal parts responsibility in my upbringing. I'm still really close with my dad too, so I couldn't say one way or the other. They're both, have different things.
Sure.
I got certain things from my mom, maybe a little bit more nurturing. I got, the
hard work.
kind of the hard line and some of the stuff that I use now from my dad. So but they were both the hardest workers ever.
What was the biggest lesson both of them taught you?
They weren't super. There weren't like a lot of speeches or a lot of like pep talks or anything like that. It was more lead by example. They weren't going to ask us to do anything that they weren't going to do. Like if we were outside doing chores or doing work, they were right there with us doing it. And so I think that's probably one of the biggest things I learned from them is I'm not going to get in, on the team stuff. I'm not going to get in anybody's face, and I'm not a real rah get you fired up person, but they all know that I'm going to be right there next to them, and I'm not going to ask them to do anything that I wouldn't do, or I'm not going to work just as hard as they're going to be there. So that's probably, somebody asked me about that a while back, and I was like, I don't really, I don't have any like particular speech I can go back to from either one of them, but they were always just there.
Example.
They were always
their
there.
Example,
they were always present. That was one thing when I think about now with my kids is like I want to make sure that I'm there. It doesn't have to be, there doesn't have to be a big speech or anything like that, but it's, when I needed something, they were both there, and so it was pretty awesome.
Is there anything you missed from your parents growing up that you wish they would have given you, whether it be a mindset, a skill set, a nurturing energy?
My dad is incredible, like building stuff, working with his hands. I was actually just talking about this. We, could build anything, can fix anything, do any of that stuff. I wish I had that. I can fix enough stuff, but it's not my,
Sure.
I'm not gonna go do that. But I think, I was there helping him and doing that stuff, but I was more concentrated. Like I wanted to play sports. I wanted to do that type of stuff. So I can't blame him for me not, wanting to do that type of stuff growing up. But yeah, I mean, I wish I could, look
build a house right
and my
now.
dad is just like, oh yeah, like that's broken. Let me fix this. 2 seconds, it's knocked out. And I'm like, dang it. I wish I could do that. Like I could YouTube a video and I know enough that I've, helped him a bunch growing up, but it just wasn't my thing that I wanted to do growing up. I wanted to be outside. I wanted to play baseball or play football in the yard, where he was like, oh, I'm going to go over here and work on this. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'll help you clean up when you're done or whatever. So,
would you trade that for being the greatest of all time?
I don't think so. I don't think that, I think it worked out all right, And so, you can't really look back and be like, oh, I would change this, I would change that. I'm happy where I'm at. I learned from things that I moved on from, but my parents were awesome, but they did the best they could with with what they had. Yeah. So I'm super appreciative of them from that.
Now, what got you into CrossFit in the first place? I know we've talked about this before, but how did you first discover it? Because you were a star in baseball, and baseball is the main sport.
Yeah, so football. I went to college to play baseball. And
D1, D2?
It was JUCO.
JUCO.
And so it was Walter State. A lot of the guys had either been drafted and didn't go the round they wanted to, so they went JUCO ball, or they went to an SEC school or got an offer from an SEC school and they didn't wait 3 years to get drafted. Right. So they went to Walter State, and I was neither of those things. 5'9", white guy, good glove, decent speed, leadoff guy, a dime a dozen. And so I got there, had a girlfriend back home, and that's really the reason. I was like, I need to head back home. And so
the girlfriend made you come back.
She didn't really make me come back.
Why do girls always ruin everything?
It's always, it is what it is. And I hate it because they won the national championship the year that I left.
Oh no.
And so, but I wouldn't be where I am now. So it is what it is. And so
is this your wife or no?
No, not my wife.
Oh.
So she knows the story, so it's all right. I went back, and they had this program at Tennessee Tech where I went, where you'd work as a full-time firefighter and they'd pay your tuition. It was actually the city of Cookeville would do it. And so I worked as a full-time firefighter for 4 years, 3.5 years while I was getting my undergrad. And I was taking a class in exercise science, and one of the professors was the head strength and conditioning coach, who also did CrossFit, owned CrossFit Cookeville at the time. And so he was like, man, you're into working out, you're a firefighter, a lot of military police fired do CrossFit, you should check it out. So
it was 2008, 2009?
2009. And so I still have the textbook, and I just wrote CrossFit.com on the inside of the book. And so started reading the book, or went to the website, and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. So I'd add some of the workouts in, and then I ended up getting my level 1 in June of 2009. And then in July of 2009, my cousin moved down, who's my coach, but glorified training partner.
Right.
Been with me since the beginning. And we started doing CrossFit, only CrossFit, on July 1st that year. And so it's been
10
years.
In a month.
In a month.
Wow.
And so, and so kind of haven't really looked back from then. And then I didn't even know you could compete at the time. So we just kind of trained people. We couldn't afford the affiliation fee. And we would, we'd say we use CrossFit methods, do it the legal way. And so we didn't know you could compete. And then we saw these videos and we're like, oh, this is cool. So we tried some of the workouts from the 2009 games where Savon did these videos, and we tried the workouts, and I was like, oh, my times are pretty comparable, and so were his. So we're like, maybe we should try this. And so I guess it was the beginning of that year they announced that they were doing sectionals. And so sectionals was in Huntsville, Alabama.
Mm-hmm. I played arena football there.
There you go. Nice. All right.
I never want to go back.
No, me either. It was on the way to spring break. And we were like, on the way to spring break, we'll stop and see what give it a shot. And so that year you had to be in the top.
22, 23 at the time?
Yeah, 20, it would have been 22. And so I was like, if I'm in the top, because you had to be in the top 15. If you're in the top 15.
Of sectionals? Or?
Yeah, to go to regional. So I was like, if I'm in the top 20, we'll hang out. But if I'm, there's 70-something guys. If I'm in the bottom 25, I was like, we'll get an early jump on spring break. Well, I was in first after the day, and I was like, all right, we'll hang out a little bit and see how it goes. And so went to regionals, same type of deal. Didn't want to get last, ended up winning the region.
Wow.
Went to the games, and we talked about it earlier.
Got second.
Fell off the rope.
Oh,
and
man.
It's been kind of
That was probably the greatest lesson you learned that year.
For sure.
As much as you wanted to win, it probably made you so much more disciplined over the last 9 years.
For sure. If I wouldn't, I go back and say if I would have won that first year, I don't think I would have won the next 4.
Wow.
Because, I'd kind of narrowed my focus so much that I'd let CrossFit kind of define who I was, and it'd become my focus, and I'd put so much, into that, when those type of things are taken away from me, and you say taken away from me, you got second place, but for me, it was awful. I was miserable for months, and so it really helped me. I grew up a Christian, and my faith has always been a huge part of it, but that really made me refocus and realize that's why I do what I do. Is those were my talents, and they've been given to me, and I'm going to bless him, or glorify him with all that I have. And so it really made me focus on, all right, it's not about who I am, and my identity is not in CrossFit. It was very freeing, and I didn't have to worry, and it took a lot of pressure off. I don't necessarily think that God willed me to win, but it was the fact that I didn't put so much of my identity in that it kind of loosened me up for that. So
it's funny because I remember I was training with Graham for 2 years before that because I was playing professional football, arena football. He was training me in the off seasons.
Right.
And this was about the time where he learned about CrossFit.
Okay.
And he was a trainer at I think Bill's Gym.
Bill's Gym, yeah.
He was a trainer there, and they were doing just kind of like sports specific training stuff,
Right.
kind of like Accelerate Ohio type, all those training facilities. But he was doing more and more CrossFit type stuff, and I didn't even know what it was. And he said at one point, he was like, I'm gonna go, and there's like this, world championship thing. I'm gonna go check it out.
Go try it out.
My goal is to get like top 5. I did it last year, and I think he was like top 20 or something. And he's like, yeah, I'm hoping to get like top 5. And then I remember like, cool, have fun. I had no clue what it was.
Right.
And I was like, good luck, and I'll talk to you later or whatever. And then it was like a month afterwards, I saw him. I go, oh yeah, how did that thing go?
Yeah.
And he's like, I won. I was like, what?
What?
Yeah, I was like, and then I really dove into CrossFit and learned about it. And I was like, wow, this is powerful. And that's when I heard about your name. Because you were like leading.
Yeah, and then I ruined it. Yeah.
But it's probably the greatest lesson in your life.
For sure, man. Like it was, like I said, it was awful. And that backing up,
especially as a 22-year-old, where your whole life is sports. You've got to win a championship.
And everybody asks, why are you so competitive? I was one of 32 first cousins. 25 of us are boys.
Wow.
So it was just, and even the girls would beat us on a lot of stuff, because all athletes. Yeah. And so, man, I hate losing in anything. And so for that to happen and be so public, like it could be just me and you and nobody else know, and I get embarrassed.
Yeah.
Like it still drives me nuts to lose. And so to be
this was public
and just a failure. It felt like a failure getting second. Everybody's like, oh, you got second. That's awesome. And I was not. No. And no part of me was happy about that. And so, yeah, for sure, it was like, all right, it lit a fire for the next couple of years,
What did you think about the next 12 months or however long until the next games? What was the mindset every morning for you?
Yeah, every day.
Did you have a photo of Graham up on your wing mirror?
No, it wasn't really, you can't, in CrossFit, you can't really concentrate on just one person, It's like there's so many people that could.
It's every person's skill set.
Those years, there was 5 or 6 guys that were always, mixing it up for events, and it was a tight field for a while. And so, every day, that's one of the things I talk about is why people are so upset that I don't compete as an individual now. It's like when I woke up every single day, my goal was to win the CrossFit Games every single day. Like whatever I had to do that day was the CrossFit Games. That was my goal. And there was a lot of relationships and a lot of
6 years, right?
5-6 years. Yeah. There was a lot of relationships. There was a lot of missed, family time, stuff like that. And that was my goal. That's what I wanted to do. And I was going to do whatever it took. Like I would, 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and part of me now is like, it was so probably counterproductive, now knowing the stuff that I know and I've trained for as long as I have, I'm like, man, if I would have just been smarter, it would have been better. And now, but you had to learn those things, like I said earlier, we were kind of the guys that were figuring it all out. And so, when we had Lakeland, my first daughter, I was like, I can't do that. Like my goal needs to be being a dad and a husband first. And I just don't have that. Like now I do want to be super fit and I want to, win the games for my team, but it's now I've got 3 kids, a wife, business that I run first, and then I still compete and still have fun and get to do that, but it's not my number one goal. Mm-hmm. And I don't feel like if I was to go back as an individual, I don't have that. Like I'm not going to sacrifice those things.
What were you doing those first 2 years afterwards? Were you just training 10 hours a day?
For sure. Every day, all day. It was like a get up and, everybody talks about, you got to get up at 5 a.m. to be successful. No, I would sleep. Sleep was a huge part and is a huge part of recovery. And so I'd sleep until I would get up, and then I would literally from, I might get up 8:30, 9 o'clock, but literally from 9 o'clock until I went to bed at 9 or 10 o'clock again that next night, or that night I was training, doing
obsessing
something.
over
Obsessing. Yeah.
What would it be like? What would it be like? Was it just 2 hours in the gym doing lifting and then mobility?
Yeah, I mean, it was literally
cardio
anything I could think of. You know, it was, you know, machines. It was, you know, real, actual, like, strict CrossFit workouts. There was lifting. There was, you know, anything that I was like, oh yeah, I should do that. Or, you know, I'd have a group of guys that would come in the morning. I'd have a group of guys that would come midday, and then I'd have a group of guys that come in the afternoon. And I might do the same stuff in those same states. It was just like,
you're trying to beat them all. If you're fresh,
time.
I'm going to beat
matter.
you.
Yeah, exactly. And so,
wow.
And it was a great group of people that, you know, they would beat me in, or like push, like I'd have a guy that would push me in something super heavy, and then I have a guy that push me in something, you know, all body weight, and then I have somebody that push me in the cardio type stuff. So it was a team effort even then, but man, it was, yeah, if you look back at those years, you're like, man, I you know, we worked hard, but it was maybe not the smartest at the time.
Part of me just feels like I miss those days though.
Right, yeah, me too.
Where all you do is train.
That was it, you know,
it's your life.
That was all I wanted to do, and that was, I was gonna do it. And, you know, now looking back, I'm like, man, it was a lot of fun, but man, it was some of it was stupid. You're like, why was I, you know, I would clean in the morning, and then I would do, you know, cleaning again at that night, you know, it's like, what am I doing? But I was like, oh yeah, it'll help somehow.
Right. Did you get injured a lot through those phases?
Honestly, no. You have some overuse type stuff, but nothing. The only things that I have major injuries that I've had in 10 years, and you know, you're talking top 1%, you know, so it's a profession now. It's not just CrossFit, so I'm not going to link these back to CrossFit, but I came down off of a rope, twisted my ankle, and broke my ankle. That was in November 12 or 13. Stupid. We had like a Thanksgiving party at the gym, and Hillary left, and I was like, I'm gonna sneak something in real fast. Man. And sure enough, I come down on the rope, break my ankle, and I'm like, oh man. And so it's the only workout that I've ever quit. I was like, I was the first rope climb too. So I'm like, I can finish. And I went to do another one. You know, like you walk off an ankle sprain, you're like, I'm all right. This wasn't a walk off ankle sprain. And so I actually had to like drive with my left foot.
Oh, that's the hardest thing to do. I've done that too.
So bad. My right foot's up on the dash. I'm like, stop the swelling. And I get home, and Hillary's like, what's wrong? I'm like, I twisted my ankle a little bit. What were you doing? I was trying to show Henry how to climb a rope and blah, blah, blah. She's like, oh, okay. Well, she's like, should you go to the hospital? I'm like, no, I'm fine. Well, so about middle of the night, I get up to pee.
Robbing.
And I go to stand and just immediately hit the floor. So I scoot on my butt to the bathroom. And so I get back to the bed, and Hillary's like, we're going to the hospital in the morning. I'm like, yeah, you're right.
Wow.
And so I get it x-rayed. Sure enough, it's broke. And so that was an injury I had. And then honestly, you know, I've had little, like, you know, overuse type things and, you know, shoulder stuff, but nothing major.
That's pretty amazing.
I tore my meniscus in 17. And that was been the most frustrating thing, is because it was like, oh yeah, you know, so tore it the week before regionals. Doing a workout in the basement, was going to do 3 rounds. It was just like ski, double under, burpee over the parallel, and then rest. It was like an interval type thing. I was going to do 3 rounds. Well, I did 3 rounds. I was like, I might as well do 4. On the 4th round, on the 90th double under, I just feel something. It just doesn't feel right. Doesn't really like pop or anything, but doesn't feel right. I'm like, oh, okay. It starts to swell up. Can't put any pressure on it. I'm like, all right. So I go the next day, see some PTs at the gym. They're like, I think you just maybe sprained your MCL. I was like, take it easy for a couple of days. So I did a bunch of upper body stuff, and it's a week before regionals. So I'm like, I can't completely take time off. I probably could have been fine.
Yeah.
So the next morning, we're doing a workout, swimming in my dad's pond. We're doing dumbbell snatches. I go to dive into the pond, and I just feel something pop and let go. And you're like, oh no. Then your like leg kind of goes like, numb, and you're like, oh, that's not good. So I finish the workout.
Oh, you're crazy, man.
I'm an idiot. And I'm like, tell the team, I'm like, hey, we need to talk to John Lindy, who was on our team. It was our alternate. I was like, you need to get his mind right, because I don't know what's going to happen. So I text one of our, he's a PA at the gym. He's like, meet me at the office. So he does these tests. He's like, you tore your meniscus. I'm like, what do I do? And he's like, good news is you can't really make it worse. He's like, if you can handle the pain, like if we can get some of the swelling down, you can probably still compete.
Shut up.
And so he gives me a cortisone shot.
Oh my gosh, man.
And so I go see a surgeon, and he's an ex-NFL surgeon. He's like, yeah, you'd be fine. He's like, as long as you can handle the pain, he's like, you can get through regionals. He's like, we'll look at it after regionals, see how the cortisone shot does. He's like, we can do the surgery. You got about 6 to 8 weeks before the games. We'll do the surgery.
No way.
He's like, or you can wait till after the games. So I did the cortisone shot and felt fine, like was good. So I was like, you know what, I think I'll wait till after. I might even do the surgery.
After the games?
Yeah, I might even do the surgery. about halfway between training from regionals and the games, that cortisone shot wears off, and I'm like, I need another cortisone shot. So I got another cortisone shot, which had to do it. Wish now I wouldn't have. But then I had surgery the week after the games in 17.
So you did the games?
Did the games.
With a torn meniscus?
With a torn meniscus. We got second that year, but it was frustrating. But then I had surgery, man, and it never got better.
Really?
I was frustrated. So I did stem cell, I did the hyaluronic acid, I did a bunch of stuff. And for like a year and a half, the hyaluronic acid and the stem cell kind of helped, but I still was like, some days it would be great, and other days it would be like, depending on what I did the day before, it would be awful. And so I was like, that was going up until December of this year, and then met this doctor in Cookeville, and it's called strain counter strain therapy, and then he did some acupuncture, and I'm back to about 95%. Pretty crazy. Like, those were the meniscus was the hard one, because it was like, you
can't load anything.
Can't do anything. Can't do anything.
Squatting, jumping.
No squatting. It would get so swollen. I couldn't run, couldn't squat, couldn't
jump rope maybe like a little
no, bit. And it was just frustrating. And so, but man, I found this guy in town. Everybody's like, "Did you go to Nashville?" And I'm like, "No, it's Cookeville, Tennessee. This guy's a genius, and it's basically all but fixed it." Like, still, like, there's days I need to be smart. Like yesterday, we walked around at Disney for 8 hours, and it's a little like tender today. But man, he's a magician.
Wow,
so pretty cool.
Wow. Okay. So very minimal injuries.
Very minimal. Yep.
And after you got second the first year, you went 4 years back to back.
Yep.
4 years.
4 years.
Did you ever feel challenged at all?
Oh yeah, every year. I'd always, and we were talking about, when people dig their holes at the beginning of the weekend, I had a couple years where I would do that. Like, I got 27th in 11 on the first event. I got 27th on the first event, I think, in 13, and then 14 I had another event that was terrible. And so I always decide to like dig a hole and then have to climb out of it, but just make it interesting.
Right. Make it come back.
But yeah, no, heck no. I mean, back then, there was a lot of guys that were, right in the mix all the time. Kalipa was on the podium several years in a row. You had Graham, super fit. Bailey, you had Matt Chan, kind of all the originals, all the guys I competed with in the Legends event last weekend. But yeah, it was just a different time. It was a little bit different than it is now.
Where is CrossFit now compared to 10 years ago?
Oh, well,
it's like a global sport business.
Yeah. Well, and all these changes we've talked about this year, it'll be interesting to see what happens. It's grown exponentially, and the games last year were, I think, one of the best games we've had.
Really.
Especially it being in Madison, they moved it from California. It kind of, the first year in Madison, it almost felt like a glorified regional. It didn't feel like the games, but last year it felt awesome. It felt like the games. It felt like back.
They should do it on Ohio State.
That's
where Rogue is, man.
It would be cool. Well, I mean, who knows with this new system what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's kind of frustrating just to see all these, we felt like we got to this really good point and then everything completely changed.
Why did they change it?
Greg's the owner of CrossFit, and he wanted to see these changes, and it's his deal, and he can do whatever he wants.
Right.
And so, that's what he wanted to do, and so now we have all these sanctionals, which I think are a cool idea.
What's that mean?
So, we used to have regionals. Used to go the Open, regionals, and then games, and so basically you built on each other.
The top three from regionals go, or whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever it is. And so now it's like you have the Open, and so this year what they did with Open was the top 20 individuals, men and females, got an invite to the CrossFit Games.
Automatic. The top 20 in the Open, so you don't have to go to regionals anymore.
Nope. And
wow, really?
Also, if you won your country,
wow,
and as long as there's an affiliate in your country, you can go to the CrossFit Games if you win your country. So then
that means anyone could go to some country,
but it has to be your passport country. So like wherever your passport is issued,
that's
your
dual
country.
Citizenship. You can like apply for anything.
So whatever country, then you can go to the games.
It's like Olympic stuff now.
Now they have these sanctional events. So not any, but you have to go through CrossFit. You pay whatever fee to call yourself a sanctional event. So this year there were 14 or 15. So if you won one of those sanctionals, you got to go to the CrossFit Games.
Man, it sounds like you can go. It's so much easier to go now.
Yes, and so as individuals, well then teams, the only way you can go to the games is if you win a sanctional. No Open, no nothing. So there's only like 15 teams or 14 teams going to go to the games this year. However, there's going to be 160 something men and 160 something women.
Wow, it's huge.
Where there used to only be 40.
50, right? 40
men, 40 women. So now the deal is allegedly the first day of the games, they're going to have one or a couple
Cuts.
events, and they're going to cut like the field in like huge.
Down to half.
And so basically,
Interesting. That's cool.
If you won, I think your open rank, somehow they're like, however you qualified has precedent over how somebody else qualified. I don't remember how exactly
because
it works.
if you have the worst event first and you're the best in the world,
exactly,
they
there
can't
needs
just
to be
cut you.
some type of safety net. So it'll be interesting. It's just going to be different. It's kind of frustrating. CrossFit cut all of the games media. There's no games media anymore.
What does that mean?
So like any of the videos that they would produce, CrossFit would produce, they're gone for the games. So now they're relying
like marketing videos or like
yes, everything. So now,
why did they do that?
Money. I guess he was like,
it's expensive.
Greg's trying to concentrate more on the health side of things instead of the game side, where I feel like it's a good idea. Like I think for a while we got too caught up in, the CrossFit Games, the top 1%. I think there's value to that, and I think we don't need to completely abandon it. But he's concentrating on the health side of things and getting people moving and, trying to reach an older type of crowd. And I feel like maybe he got a little scared that people got intimidated seeing the games and they think injury and all that stuff, but you got to look at it as two completely separate entities. Like the games is literally, it's a showcase of what CrossFit can do, but it's not CrossFit. CrossFit is the community, it's the gyms, it's the affiliates, it's the people that do CrossFit. It's not the CrossFit Games. And so we've kind of swung completely another direction where it's kind of like, I would like to see almost like middle direction, but like I said, it's Greg's to do and he runs the show and it is what it is. So back to it, there's no actual games media anymore. He's kind of relying on these other, there's called Morning Chalk Up. There's some other publications that are doing the media type stuff for it. So I mean, it's actually opened up an avenue for us. Like we have our own YouTube channel and we produce our own videos. We have in-house media, so it is good. And it's kind of the whole market that he does with the affiliates, where it's like the cream rises to the top type of deal. So we'll see. It's just big change. It's just a lot of change in such a short amount of time. There hasn't been a ton of communication about it. Like they cut the Instagram. Like there's no CrossFit
Instagram,
no CrossFit HQ
social
Instagram
media
or Facebook.
What?
Something
Why?
about privacy issues with Facebook. So last 2 weeks ago,
no
just
way,
all of a sudden it was gone.
All the content is gone.
There's Twitter still because it's not Facebook owned, but completely got rid of Instagram and Facebook.
That seems
Games, CrossFit HQ, all of it gone.
The website's still up.
The website's still up.
That seems kind of crazy.
Kind of crazy, but hey, it's his. Like I said, it's his.
Maybe there's something else happening behind the scenes we don't know about.
Who knows? But
everyone is on Facebook and Instagram.
Everyone
to promote and tag and share.
And so it was just like, all right, we're done, and it was just like gone. So CrossFit HQ or the CrossFit Instagram was gone first.
At CrossFit Games is still gone?
Was for a day, and then it was gone the next day. And so you're kind of like, all right, see you. Peace. Wow. So yeah, there's been a lot of changes in the last couple of weeks, and a lot of people are frustrated and fired up. You talk to people in the gym, and they're like, what's going on? And it's just like, the problem is there's just lack of communication. Sure. And, he's going on these podcasts, and there's a couple like CrossFit, traditional CrossFit podcasts, and he's kind of talking about why he's doing this stuff, but there's no media anymore to kind of tell you why it's going on. So it is what it is, and so then I'd also heard that he turned down the viewer, I think Facebook actually offered to broadcast the games and turned that down. And so you're just kind of like, so right now apparently there's nobody to broadcast the games.
ESPN or no?
CBS Sports was, and I'd heard, hearsay, you kind of hear different things, and CBS Sports was turned down as well. So we'll see if the games is even broadcast.
Maybe CrossFit.com, maybe.
I don't know. That's what they did for years, but there's no media. So what are you gonna do? It's kind of
interesting, man.
It's kind of gotten it's Wild West right now. So
I feel like it's always been that though.
It is, and that's
every year something changes, right?
When somebody, when you have one person that runs the show and they can do what they want to do, that's what it is. It's Wild West.
How do you think your mindset is different than the rest when you were competing at the highest level as an individual? How do you feel like, because everyone can work the same amount of workload. Right. And I feel like there's probably guys that did just as much,
fitter.
maybe a little more.
There's probably people that are physically fitter.
Yeah. How did you train the mind to prepare yourself for the whole world to try to take you down?
Yeah. So I think it was kind of a mix of everything. My entire growing up, like I talk about my parents, I talk about the hard work and the leading by example, and they were always, there was always something to do. There was that. There was me being one of 32 first cousins. Always, everything was competitive. Everything was a competition. We would, now I realize it was my parents trying to tire us out and, hey, run around the pond. Let's see who can run around the pond the fastest as kids. We're like, yeah, let's do it. And so that type of stuff. And so there was that. And then, high school baseball, I had an incredible high school baseball coach that would push us. And we would always joke that we ran more than the track and cross country team. And, he was huge into mental toughness. And, he said he did CrossFit before CrossFit was a thing. That's his joke now. And, we would do these workouts. And now I look back having an exercise science degree. And I was like, what the heck were we doing? It was stupid. But it was hard and it was mentally tough, and that was his deal, and mental toughness, and there was that. And then I had being in the fire department and those lessons that I learned from that. I think it's just a mix of all of it. I don't think there was one thing that I can pinpoint down or think about the mentality of what one thing it was. I think it was just a mix of all of it, and like wanting to win the games, having the the atmosphere where I could do that, and like having those guys that would train with me in the mornings, in the midday, in the afternoon. Those to push me, and my cousin the same way, and just all of that into one perfect storm. I guess there's not one thing that I can be like, oh yeah, that was it.
How did you feel like you handled the pressure though? Because during those first few years where it seemed like a lot of pressure,
right?
There's so many people there, it's on the line, each event matters, or you lose. What did you think about before every event would start, or in the middle when you're like, gosh, I'm exhausted?
Yeah,
like. This person's crushing me right now. How did you stay focused?
Yeah, I think a huge part of that, like I said, was my faith and not having such a, not having that pressure on. There was still pressure. Like, I'm not going to say that, I didn't have pressure on me, but it took some of that pressure off. And
what would you think about in that moment when you felt like, oh, this pressure is on me? What would you say to yourself or internal conversation?
The good thing is like I'd had that rope fall and I'd embarrassed myself greatly, or way more than I was going to embarrass myself again. So it was kind of like I've already done
the worst.
The worst that it could happen, in my mind, was the worst thing that could happen. So it was like, it's going to be all right, And then the more and more I competed, and the more the years went on, I noticed that hey, it's not about one event. Like as long as there's damage control, like there's certain events you're not going to do great at if you can damage control in those events. And I think that was one thing that I kind of figured out a lot earlier than people was, everybody was like, well, when I go out there, I compete against myself and I just do the best that I can and blah, 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 and all this, the stuff that people want to tell themselves when they don't want to push hard or don't want to take credit for their, something happening. So what I learned was you can watch people and watch, hey, I need to stay ahead of so-and-so. There was times where it bit me in the ass, but it was like, luckily for us, you kind of knew what lane you were in, what place you were in. And so you could figure out, all right, so-and-so is maybe better at this, but if I'm, within either a rep or two or a person or two of them, I can make up points or not lose too many points, and then I can get ahead of them in another event. And so I kind of learned that, and you would kind of call audibles in the middle of it. You're like, oh, I got to push here. I need to do whatever. And so I think that was something that one of the things that I figured out a lot earlier than people was it is a sport. Like as much as, it's just working out, there is some strategy to it. You're trying to game things and you're trying to all right, I know this movement is kind of a rest for me so I can kind of push here, or, this movement's going to be a little bit harder so I need to slow down, and gaming workouts. And that was something I think, training so much and doing so many different things that I did, and the volume that I did, that I learned, I'd done certain combinations of movements. They may not have done the exact workout, but I knew how they kind of played off of each other. And so that was something that I'd learned pretty early on and helped a ton.
That's great. How did you handle fear throughout the career?
Yeah, I mean, there were times where, especially I remember specifically one time in 2013. So I'd gotten 27th on a pool event. I got second on a rowing event. It was the half marathon, but you started out with a 2K sprint, which was the worst thing ever. So I went 27th, second, 7th, I think, on the marathon, and then I went 7th, I think, on the burden run. Well, Kalipa had went first. So he had a huge lead, and I'm just pissed off, and I'm in a horrible mood. And my wife comes up, and we're kind of sitting in the athlete area between events, and she's like, "You don't look like you're having fun." I was like, "I'm not having fun. I'm in I was probably in third or fourth at the time. this is awful, like, whatever. And she's like, go get your stuff. I'm like, what do you mean get my stuff? She's like, well, if you're not having fun, we need to go home. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm going to go get my stuff, leave this. Like, I trained all year for this. She's like, you do the best when you have fun. And I'm like, like, she's never played any type of sports, like anything like that. She did when she was really young, like she played basketball and stuff like that, but she never in high school. She's the least competitive, could care less about anything CrossFit related. But she was like, go get your stuff, we're leaving. Go tell Dave we're leaving. And I was like, what are you talking about? And then she's like, well, then start having fun. And I was like, all right, well then, I didn't like start having fun immediately, but it turned around. So she always takes credit for, that year that she was.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, it's like, you try to have as much fun as you can. And over the years, you learned that, when I first started competing, like a month out, like my nerves would start getting me. And you're like, man, butterflies and all that. Well then, after a year or two, it was like 2 weeks out, then it would start. And then it was like a week out. Now it's
2 days before, yeah.
Now it's like the event of, then I start getting a little nervous still. Everybody's like, you still get nervous? I'm like, heck yeah, I still get nervous. I think when you stop getting nervous, it's not fun anymore,
That's true.
But yeah, I think it's just the nerves and, being a competitor and you have that, like before it, you have all this build up, but then literally as soon as 3, 2, 1, go happens, it's just like,
you gotta go.
It's just like, everything goes away. You talk about flow or whatever it is, but it literally, like, I can't tell you any music that's played during events. You can't hear any of the cheers. You can't hear any of that stuff. You're just kind of in it, and you just kind of go through it. And it's hard to explain. It's just like a competitive nature. It's just, it's hard to. People are like, what makes you so competitive? I'm like, I don't know. It's just something that you just get into, and you don't really think about those things. Yeah, the workout sucks and it's gonna hurt, and for a long time, like I said, I have those certain things that go through my head. I'd write Bible verses on my shoes and think about like the crucifixion of Christ, and those were the things early that really got me. But then it's just like after you've done it for so long, it's what you do.
Yeah.
It's like you just get into that space and you get in that zone, and it's go.
Well, you've already experienced the pain so much. You're like, I know it's gonna suck.
Yeah, it's gonna hurt. It's just
Everyone's
like, when is it
hurting.
gonna hurt? Like most of the time you're like, all right, this workout's gonna take 10, 15 minutes, but the pain's really gonna set in about minute 9 minutes, depending on whatever the workout is. But yeah, it's like you've almost become not numb to the pain because it still hurts, but you've almost like embraced that pain, and you just know. It's almost like a sick, twisted thing where you're just like, this is what it is, And it's I've got kind of an addictive personality, and there's some substance abuse in my family history, but I've never had any substance abuse. But I think working out is probably my substance abuse. Yeah, really it is.
How important is pain for everyone in the world to experience on a daily or weekly basis?
It's when you grow, man. It's you never grow and you never move forward when you're comfortable. Like you've got to, as bad as it sounds, you got to go out and you got to seek that stuff. You have to. That's when you get better, and that's when you grow, I think. It's the same as physically, like when it hurts, that's when something good is happening. So you almost embrace that, where it's like, this is going to hurt, but I know on the other side I'm going to come out better. And it's the same way mentally. It's like, if you're not pushing, you're not growing.
Why do so many people resist pain when they know?
I think people just, it's either their upbringing, or it's they've never had that, or they just don't enjoy it. You're not going to enjoy pain. Like, let's be honest. We talk about like some of the most miserable experiences. When you're done with it, you're like, that was awesome. Like you go out and seek these like challenges. I never want to do this again. This in the middle of it, you're like, I went on this elk hunting trip for 6 days, and for the first 3 days it was awesome. The 4th day, downhill. We didn't see any elk. I hiked 60 miles in 6 days, like sun up to sundown, going through the woods, and I'm like, this is miserable. Yeah. Like, I hate this. And then I got done. I'm like, I can't wait to do that again. Like you're just like, it's sick and it's twisted, but like you're growing in that, as long as it's productive pain. Like there's certain things that aren't productive, but as long as it's something good, you're on the other side, you're going to come out better. And I think, I don't know if it's hard for me sometimes to relate to other people that are like, how do you get there that you want to, you want to compete or you want to go to that pain? I'm like, how do you not want to? How do you not see the benefit of it? It's hard sometimes for me to like talk to people that don't get that, like you get it, we're just talking about it, but it's hard for me, like it's just hard to like relate to that. Cause I don't know what makes me want to do that. But my wife, she's similar. She's like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do anything that's painful. Like for me, it's just how I do it.
Why do you think you're wired that way to want it?
I don't know. I think it's that perfect mix of everything that we talked earlier. It's just,
because you want to win that bad.
I want to win that bad.
It
it's not even I want to win that bad. I don't want to lose. I don't want to make an idiot of myself. Like I said, it could be just us two and nobody else could be watching, but it still just drives me crazy. And it's ridiculous. You know, like if you really look back and like, yes, you know, like we're saying, you want to grow through pain, but like some of the stuff, it's like, why does that cause? Like, why am I so caught up in that? Sure. But it's just the way I am. It's just the way I'm wired. It's the way I've always been wired.
How did you meet your wife?
Met my wife getting my hair cut. I was a firefighter getting off shift, and we had a mutual friend that she cut my hair and she colored Hillary's hair. And so while Hillary was getting her hair colored, I was getting mine cut, and we'd actually both gotten out of like 4 or 5 year long relationships. We were both miserable in those relationships and finally got out of them. And I was a perfect gentleman to every woman that I ever dated. My mom was always like, open every door, do whatever. And I was a jerk to Hillary. And she kept coming. I was like, I'm not ready to get in a relationship, you know, like
I have some fun. I gotta go on that spring break trip.
Exactly. And so I'm like, was a complete just jerk to her.
Really?
And she just kept coming and was like, you know, I don't know. She gives it like doesn't take any crap either, and would just like, there was one time, this is awful, and I'm such a jerk for doing it, but she came to visit me at the fire station, kind of met her, introduced. This was like a little bit later on when we were like, we'd kind of hung out and talked and text and all that stuff for probably 3 or 4 months, and I was just like, you know, I'm not ready, and all this stuff. So she comes to the fire station. I introduced her all to the guys, and she's going to leave, and you know, take her out to her car, open the door, let her in, and she's like, so what are we? Are we talking? Are we texting? You know, what's our
together? Are we? And
I'm like, I don't like titles. The stupidest thing I could have ever said, ever. And she goes, don't ever talk to me again.
Wow.
I was like, okay, that's not good. So the next day.
So you text her the next day?
I didn't text her the next day because I was like, all right, I'm going to see what happens. The next night she goes, why the hell have you texted me all day? I was like, you told me not to. And so I was like, all right, this girl, you know. So she, you know, she can dish it out and she's perfect. Like she's completely, the statement opposites attract are literally me and my wife.
Really?
But we work really well together, and she supports me in everything, and I support her in her things. And you know, she could care less about anything CrossFit related. You know, she
really, even this is your whole life.
Whole life, man. This is
she
my
doesn't
life.
care about it.
Listen to this. So she
supports you and shows up.
Supports, yeah, heck yeah.
She goes
she's
to the
there.
game.
She's my biggest fan, but she could care less. Like as long as you know, whatever. And so we have 3 kids. Our oldest, Lakeland. She bought all the most expensive, like, dolly clothes for her, and Lakeland hates them now. But at the time, you know, Lakeland maybe wore this stuff once, twice, whatever. So I'm doing some laundry one night with her. And so fold laundry, I take it up to Lakeland's room. I open this closet, and it's just like the amount of money hits me that we spent on these clothes. And it's just like the light. I'm like, ah. Oh. And so I'm like, whatever. So, you know, and we had some infertility issues and all that stuff, and Lakeland's adopted, and all 3 of our kids are adopted. But so I, you know, didn't really, like, I would give her crap about spending money, but I'm like, hey, you know, we've waited long enough for this kid. Like,
yeah.
You know, I want her to, and so this is years later. And so I walk back downstairs and I'm like, not to be a dick. Like, I just want to know, how much money do you think is in that closet up there? And she's like, it's a hobby. And I was like, it's an expensive hobby. And she goes, well, if you weren't so good at CrossFit, that would be an expensive hobby. And I was like, that doesn't make sense at all. Like, that just pays for this stuff. Like, this is what I do. And she's like, well, you know what I mean. And I'm like, no, actually, I don't know what you mean. So that's in a nutshell, that's our relationship. Is she could care less. But
that's hilarious, man.
She's super supportive.
What's the biggest lesson that you've learned from her over the last 8 years?
Oh man,
through her journey of supporting you?
Too many probably to list. I mean, she's the most with the stuff that we went through with you know, infertility, with adoptions, with failed adoptions and all that stuff. She's the most just resilient woman I've ever met, but also the most caring and loving. You know, like now she'll go, like if somebody's had any type of you know, like she had a friend that had a failed IUI, or like whatever, it's a fertility treatment, and you know, it's devastating. Like watching Hillary go through that, you know, for me it was a little bit like, until I knew we were having a kid or something was, until we had the kid in our hands, I was okay. But for her, anytime anything failed or any adoption failed, just watching her, like, it was like she had gotten so, like, that's our kid, and then it wouldn't happen, and it was awful.
Oh, man.
But
you get your hopes up, or you're expecting something.
But watching her do that, it was almost like we had the disappointment of not having that, but then watching her was like double, because she would just get so just distraught. And so, but she's now so supportive for these women or anybody who is going through that. And so it's just, she's the most caring person on that side, and it's pretty cool. So
did you guys know you wanted to have kids pretty
Yeah. When we talked, when we first, got serious, and we were kind of talked about family, because, you're 20 years old, you're like, hey, it's coming. And our plan was to have 3 biological and adopt 1. And that was our plan. And so we're like, let's do that. And so when we finally decided to start having kids, we're like, it's not working. And we went and got all these tests done, and they're like, no, you're both completely healthy. There's no reason why this can't happen. And so we tried for a couple of years. Well, then Hillary went on like hormone therapy, and that was a nightmare. And then, even having those, like, she's like, I'm pregnant. I think I'm pregnant. And I'm like, do you have a test? No, but I think it. I'm like, let's hold back here. And well, she'd get so caught up, and then, it wouldn't happen. So and it was just watching those things happen. And then so she came to me, and she's like, well, what if, and we were talking about doing IVF, and I was like, I don't want to pay for IVF for a chance and it not happen. And so she's like, well, what about adoption? I'm like, I just don't know if I could. Looking back, this is the stupidest thing ever, but I was like, you know what? I don't think I could adopt my first kid. Like, I just don't feel like. She's like, well, just think about it and pray about it. And I was like, I just don't think I can. Well, then she was like, finally, I was like, let's look into it. Well, she found Lakeland's birth mom, and she had a family back out. That was the day that Hillary actually talked to her through an agency. The family had backed out the day that Hillary talked to her, and she was like, this is kind of weird. This is kind of a godsend. Let me process this, and I'll get back to you. So she talked to Hillary a couple days later, and she's like, I'd like to meet you and have lunch and kind of figure it out. And so this girl is 8 months pregnant at the time.
Oh my gosh.
This is my last year as an individual at the CrossFit Games. And I'm like, okay. And so she's like, she meets Hillary, loves Hillary. She's like, I'd like to meet your husband. Well, met her. She's like, yep, let's do this. And so that was a month before the games. Lakeland was born 2 weeks before the CrossFit Games.
Oh my gosh.
We were both in the room. I cut the cord. And so then, we had to, like, it was finalized actually on my birthday, because in Tennessee there's a 14-day waiting period. So, like, at any time during those 14 days, she could have came back and said, I want to keep the kid.
Gosh.
And so you're just like
waiting.
It was awful.
And the game started that day.
Yeah.
14 days later.
Finalized my birthday. The next day we started the CrossFit Games. So it was kind of a whirlwind. When Lakeland came out here with us, she was, 2 weeks old on a plane, all that type of stuff. Man, it was chaos. But it was awesome.
You won.
And I won. And so I was like, all right.
That's amazing.
We're good. Yeah, it was hard. It was a
That's an emotional game.
Yeah,
it's your last one. Everyone's talking about it.
Yep. And so it was rough, but it was awesome. And then it's kind of funny. So we had Lakeland during the games. We had Trice, my son, during regional, like a couple weeks before regionals, and then Violet, our youngest, we got the first week of the Open in 18. So it's like we always games, regionals, Open. So
you've adopted 3 children now.
Adopted 3. Yep.
What's it like being a father of adopted children versus? And how do you feel not having a biological child?
Never once does it cross my mind that those aren't my kids. They're my kids. I don't know the feeling of having biological children, but I could not love these kids anymore. They're our kids, like.
They were yours in the first day.
Yeah, so Lakeland was there the first. We got her immediately. Like I said, I was there, cut the cord. Trice was 9 days old. He was in the NICU. When we got him, that was a kind of a crazy story too. We had a couple failed adoptions. I was tired of watching Hillary go through that, and so I was like, you know what? I'm perfectly content with Lakeland. Like, let's pump the brakes with this. She was like, I feel like we have another kid out there. And I'm like, I'm not watching you go through this. Let's take a little break. And she's like, fill out this paperwork. And I'm like, I can't fill out this paperwork because I can't watch. Like, I'm not doing this. So she comes up to me. She's like, you're gonna fill out this paperwork. I'm like, all right, I'll fill out the paperwork. But this is the last time. This is it. I'm not doing it. If it doesn't work, I'm not going through it anymore. So it was a lawyer in Florida, and so she overnights the paperwork because it was due the next day. We get an email that night, and they're like, "Hey, you're one of 20 families. This girl wants this baby to go to somebody. He's already been born. He's 9 days old. He's 4 pounds 3 ounces. He's in the NICU. She wants him to go to a family that doesn't have any kids." We're just like, crap. But in the 20, there's 2 or 3 that don't have kids, and they don't list the names. They just list ages, names of, or not names, but number of kids, ages of the kids, and whatever, and where they live. And so we get an email that night. It's like, you're one of the top 5. And so Hillary's all excited. I'm like, just calm down.
Yeah.
Pump the brakes here. And so the lawyer calls. A couple hours later, he's like, "How soon can you get to Jacksonville, Florida?" We're like, "Well, I mean, we can be there the next morning." Mind you, this is a month before regionals. I'm like, okay, here we go. And so we drove to Jacksonville, Florida, and we met Trice, and Richard III is his name, but we call him Trice. And so we've had Trice since he was 9 days old, and then Violet is actually our youngest. She's Lakeland's biological half-sister. Hillary stays in touch with the birth mom. It's not an open adoption, but she'll give her updates. And so she reached out to her on Facebook and was like, "Hey, I had another baby and can't keep her. Would you guys keep her? Or would you guys take her?" And we're like, "Of course." And Trice was 10 months old at the time. That was tough. 10 months, and Violet was super colicky, and it was hard, really hard. Now she's an angel. She's our sweetest kid. Trice is a disaster. He's literally like 100% boy, all go, all the time. But it's awesome to see, like they're not biological, but they, like, if you look at Lakeland and the way she acts, it's Hillary and myself like combined, and then Trice the same way. And like, you don't think about the things that the kids pick up on, but now the older 2 go with me to the barn or to the gym a ton. And so like, I've never once told them, "Hey, let's work out," but Lakeland loves to work out. Like, when I say work out, she swings around on the pull-up bar. She'll make like obstacle courses. She'll run around. She has a little barbell, picks up dumbbells. Trice is the same way. He tries to follow her around all the time. He's 2. But yeah, it's the things it's kind of cool to, everything comes full circle. Like, I've never once, like I said, I'm not going to be a like get in their face, rah-rah type of parent, but the things that they pick up on, you don't realize. And so that for me is another motivator now, is like, hey, I need to, these kids are watching. Like, they're the most important thing to me. And the things that they pick up on, like I've got to, like, when you get a little emotional, you're like, all right, I need to rein it in a little bit, because, that's what they feed off of it. And you don't think about it because you're like, oh, they're 2 years old or 4 years old or 1 year old. They're not going to pick up on some of this stuff, but they do, man. It's insane what they pick up
on everything. Where do you think it'd be if you weren't married during those 5 years in the games? Do you think you'd have won?
No, I don't think so.
Without being married?
I don't think so.
Really?
I think, I mean, there's some type of focus there that, you can't replace. And like I said, Hillary kept me super grounded during those years and still does. She could literally care less about, like, I'm like, hey, I snatched 300 pounds. Just take out the garbage. Or like when in one of the events, the overhead squat event, I tried to put 400 pounds over my head, and she's like, "Why did you do that?" I'm like, I mean, I was trying to win the event. She's like, "I just don't think it's necessary that you put that much weight over your head. Why do you ever need to do that?" And I'm like, thanks. She could literally care less. But like I said, it's good. Because like, I know that my worth to her is not in
based
the CrossFit
on
game.
That's powerful.
Based on track record. Like, I don't have, that's a piece of the equation I can take out is like, oh, I have to do this for my wife to stay with me. My wife's like, no, you just like watch the kids. That's how she's gonna stay around. But so it's been she's been awesome for getting me to where I am. She's a huge part of it.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah.
And transitioning into the team, you guys won once, or?
Well, we won 3 times.
3 times?
3 times, yep.
What's that like, winning with the team versus winning?
It's so much better, honestly.
You get to do,
it's more fun. You get to share it with people. Like growing up, I was a team sport guy. Obviously there's a ton of individual sides of baseball, and I did play some football too. But being able to share it with other people and to see the sacrifice that they put in, and they're right there with you, going through it, and to be able to, when you reach something like that, a goal like that together is pretty awesome.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Do you guys win money on the team or no?
Yeah, not nearly as much as an individual.
50 grand total or something?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I think last year was like 75 or something like that.
Each kid, how many is it? 4 on a team?
25, yeah. So yeah, now it's 4. It used to be 6. Oh. So yeah, but it's fun. It's a lot of fun. I still get to compete, still get to do the sponsorship stuff because I'm still competing. But I get to share it with other people, and it's a whole lot more fun. You get to suffer together, and it's you're not suffering by yourself all the time.
It's not a lonely suffering anymore.
Not lonely suffering.
Shared suffering.
But it's good. It's and made some of my best friends now through competing on a team. So it's cool.
Now that you're literally, probably the time this comes out, it'll be 10 years since you started CrossFit. What would you say are the 3 biggest lessons you learned in 10 years of training, competing, and being in CrossFit?
One of the main things, and this is something I always tell people, is if you're not doing it for a profession, use fitness as a release of stress. Like, some people get so caught up in, I've got to do this, and there is value in, not stressing about it, but putting some value in it. But getting so caught up where it like affects your day or affects your home life, it's like, hey, be stressed out about it while you're doing it in that hour, but go home, have some fun. Like, don't get so caught up in it that you're ruining your day. Another pet peeve that I actually have is kids and sports, and giving up sports for playing CrossFit, for doing CrossFit. It drives me nuts when kids are like, yeah, I quit playing football, I quit playing baseball to pursue a career in CrossFit. I'm like, man, you have the rest of your life to do CrossFit. I was like, some of the best memories that I have are sports. Some of the best lessons that I learned are playing sports. And I probably, playing more sports would have been better. Like, I concentrated on baseball, but I did play football, and like, maybe not organized football, but I was playing football in the yard and doing that type of stuff, where you're going to learn a whole lot more, and you're going to have a whole lot better base of athleticism and fitness, and it's going to serve you well. Like, that's one of the things too, is you see a lot of the guys that are gym rats, when certain events come up, they're not as good. But the guys, Graham, who played sports, you can adapt on the fly. Graham was one of the best guys that would adapt to stuff on the fly because he played a lot of sports. Ben Smith, the same way, because he played as many sports as they could. They're the best athletes, and so there's a big part of that. Number 3, I don't really know if I have a third one. I think just enjoy the community side of it. Have some friends, like share, like I said, the shared suffering. Don't work out by yourself if you don't have to. Like, if you can get with some people, have some fun. And that's what the beauty of CrossFit is that community side of it. People see the games and see what we do, but that's not really CrossFit. It's the
the day in, day out.
Yeah, going to the gym. Like, I got to go hang out at CrossFit Glendora a little bit while I was here. And just seeing, it's the same community no matter where you go. Like, we were in China competing, and it's the same. Speak a different language, but it's the same people.
Doing the same workouts.
Yeah. and everybody's super supportive, and it's pretty awesome to see that.
That's cool, man.
Yeah, it's awesome.
This is called the 3 truths. It's a question I ask everyone at the end.
3 truths.
So imagine it's your last day on Earth.
Okay.
As many years away as we want it to be.
Right.
You get to pick the day, but you got to go.
Okay.
From the physical body, right?
Going.
And you've created and achieved every dream that you want to create. You've got as many kids as you want, the family life, the legacy, everything you want, you've done it.
Right.
But for whatever reason, you got to take everything with you. Everything you've created, your content, your books, your gym, whatever. It's all going to go with you when you leave. But you get to leave behind 3 things you know to be true about your entire life. Your experiences, your lessons, and these would be the only 3 things you could leave behind.
Okay.
What would you say are your 3 truths?
3 truths. Oh man, I should have read this before, huh? 3 truths. My faith, for sure. That's something, obviously I want to take that with me, but that's
but a lesson you would leave behind for people.
Yeah, my faith. I wouldn't be where I am without my faith. Oh man. I want to say whatever my kids take from me. So I don't know if that would be my parenting, just the things that they've learned. I want to be known as a good dad to them, not to anybody else. I don't care what anybody else thinks about me. But I want my kids to take that as like, I don't even know if that would be a truth, but that's,
What's the lesson you would want to be behind?
I don't know if there's any one lesson, but I want them I want them to look and say, my dad cared, my dad was there, my dad was present.
That's good.
Probably the same as a husband, honestly. Like, it's the relationships and the things that you get with family, with friends. Those are the things that I want people to remember. I don't care. Honestly, like the CrossFit Games and the fame and all that stuff was cool. It is whatever, but it's more or less like I want to make as much money as I can to where I can spend more time with my family and do this. Not necessarily that we have, above and beyond what we need, but enough to take care of the things that we need to do, that I can be there and be present, because that's something that I got from my parents. They were there, and they were always there. So I don't even know if those are 3 truths, but that's kind of what I want to leave behind, I guess.
Okay. I want to acknowledge you for a moment, because since I've heard about you over the last 10 years and seen your stuff, you've been so consistent with how you show up. Appreciate that. As in person, as in online, you're just a good, consistent, hardworking guy who, doesn't make a lot of mistakes, who doesn't try to hurt anybody, doesn't say anything stupid.
Appreciate it. There's some times where I do some stupid stuff, but yeah.
But you're just constantly like a good guy.
I appreciate that.
And you work really, very hard.
Appreciate that.
And I acknowledge that, because you could have easily let the fame or whatever, celebrity in the CrossFit world take over to be more egotistical. But from my experience of you over 10 years, you've always been just a consistent, good dude. And that's what I would acknowledge about you. It's just like, it's hard to be consistently at that level.
Like I said, I've had a lot of good people around me that kind of, hold me accountable. And that's one thing. That's another thing, is like having people that are going to hold you accountable, and being able to take those when people tell you, hey, this is what I see and this is what you're not doing right. And granted, you have to have miles with those people, and you got to trust those people. But having somebody that's going to hold you accountable and tell you, hey, you need to shape up here, and you're like, all right, and have the wherewithal to be like, all right, you're right, and actually do it. So I appreciate that. That means a lot. Yeah,
of course, man. How can we support you? Where can we find you online? You've got an app, you've got a gym,
we've got just Instagram, Twitter is at Rich Froning. I don't do a ton of tweeting, but I don't really have a ton to say. Instagram, I have fun with Instagram. I'm not a super I'm not really on top of it all the time. If I'm like, oh yeah, I need to post something, I'll post something. But yeah, we have our CrossFit Mayhem, we have Mayhem Athlete Instagram that has a lot more of that type of stuff, and then our YouTube is just CrossFit Mayhem. Same, the CrossFit Mayhem on Instagram as well. But we do a lot more on that type of stuff. But my personal is literally, it's me, and it's really who I am. I try not to, we've talked about like having somebody run it, but I'm like, I want it to be authentic and be real. So it's that's where we're at.
That's cool, man. You got a book as well.
Got a book, yeah. First, it's been a couple of years. We've had a couple of people like, hey, you should write another one. I'm like, I didn't think anybody would read the first one. Why would I want to write another one? So we got that, and then the Netflix. There's a movie. We don't actually have an app yet. We're working on an app, but we have CrossFitMayhem.com.
The movie is called what?
Froning. Book is first. Froning is the movie. Yep.
And this is different than the CrossFit Games. Documentary, right?
Yeah, so there's the Froning CrossFit Mayhem or CrossFit documentary.
I don't think I've seen that one. I've seen the CrossFit one, which you're in.
Yeah, I think. Is that the main one? Because there's one that I'm like, there's like the next couple years they did them on a couple different people, but the first one that they did is called Froning.
Gotcha.
And it's on Netflix.
I'll have to watch that.
But then we put out a bunch of stupid stuff on our YouTube, CrossFit Mayhem. So that's where most of our current content is.
Awesome. And so you've got the CrossFit Games coming up.
You got the games coming up in end of July. So about to go into hibernation with kind of shut out all of every life. It's been a long season with the sanctional, so I gave the team, I was like 2 weeks, like just go relax, still train, but don't be super stressed. I said when I get home from California,
we're going
June 1st, we're on. So it's
exciting, man.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's been a long season, but I'm ready to get there.
It's exciting, man.
Yeah.
Very cool. So we'll check you out at Rich Froning, CrossFit Mayhem.
CrossFit Mayhem, yep.
Froning, the documentary, get the book, all this stuff.
All that stuff.
Make sure to support, what's the team called?
CrossFit Mayhem Freedom, or just Mayhem Freedom right now.
Freedom.
Yeah,
At
Mayhem
the
Freedom.
games, make sure you guys support you guys, follow you.
Appreciate it.
If it's online.
If it's online, who knows?
where?
Yeah. And I don't really know to tell you where to get that information. Maybe check out our Instagram or whatever, because that's where we'll put that stuff.
But if you go to the games in Madison, scream for them, cheer them on, give them a high five.
Heck yeah, come see us. Heck yeah, we I try to, in between events, try to take as many pictures as I can with people when I can, as long as they're not rushing us in and out of places, because they're the reason why we get to do what we get to do.
Man.
So
That's it.
It's fun.
Final question, what's your definition of greatness?
Definition of greatness. You can go with the who you are when nobody's watching, that type of stuff, but I think it's just being present wherever you are. Like it can't be, that's something that I'm working on, is like when I'm a dad, and I'm present there, and it's hard with social media, it's hard with all this stuff, and when I'm working, I'm present there, and I think it's, you can't get too caught up in, I just work out for a living, and everybody wants to think, you have all this going on, but it's like, there's other people that are, your job may just not be as in the limelight, but you're great at your job, so be present wherever you are.
The legend, Rich Froning.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.